Welcome back. I'm Rose Martin, and this is Real Life with Susan Harf, our very favorite life coach. Like you, I can't wait to hear what's on her mind today. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Rose. I'm happy to see you, and I'm so glad that you decided to join us as well. Okay, Rose, today we are talking about what if this was your last day on the planet?
Oh, did I have any notice about it ahead of time, or am I getting surprised by it?
Either or. And I think, you know how I want to approach this? I think that if truly this was your last day, God forbid, that the answer to that question might be different than where I want to start. So you can ask me that question, and I'll ask you that question at the end of our program today. And the reason for that is I don't want to cry through the whole show. Okay, so which I'm a crybaby and I tend to do, so I may do that.
Well, this could be weepy because I'm the same way.
So there you go. So we can support each other, but we'll ask each other that question later on. So what I want to start out by talking about is, can you live your life as though your life is, I'm not going to say was finite, is finite. The fact is, our lives are finite. Our lives on earth are finite. And I see people not adhering to that. I see people every day, all day, including me, not remembering that. And I think there's a difference between how you behave when you remember that and how you behave when you don't.
You know, it's interesting because when you first said that, I thought, wow, should you live every day as if it would be your last? So without regrets and having fun and letting people that you love tell them that, and trying to make up for anything that you may have done to hurt someone, just to let all that junk go, right? And to spend it how you might enjoy it. But then on the other side of it, I'm thinking, oh, well then what about the things that we're obligated to do? Are you saying we should bring a new attitude to those?
Exactly. I'm saying attitude is everything. I don't have a problem with what anyone chooses to do. I don't have a concern about what somebody's priorities are. My concern is when I see people behaving as though things, for instance, are so important and they really aren't. So I overheard a conversation in the coffee shop the other day, two women talking with each other, and one is apoplectic about the fact that the repairman didn't show up on time. And he said he was going to be there and he didn't show up, and it ruined my day. And then I had another engagement, I had a social engagement for lunch. I couldn't go because he wasn't there yet. And you know, I'm thinking to myself, how fortunate are you to be able to call a repairman, to be able to have somebody come over and fix the dishwasher? How fortunate are you to have a friend to have lunch with? The fact that you're complaining about that he didn't arrive on time and really getting ruffled about it is taking away time, energy, thought, and feelings that you could be attributing to something else.
But I wonder if feelings aren't right or wrong. They're feelings, and any emotion you bring to that. I'm going to go from the side, well, maybe the person had only a limited amount of time and really had carved out something for that repairman to get there and had the day so carefully planned, and then one thing throwing it off. I know it's easy to think about, well, that protected me from maybe getting in an accident later on the way to the luncheon or whatnot. But how do you then say to yourself, okay, no complaining, it is what it is, and I'm not going to let it, like she did, ruin my whole day?
Very good question, Rose. I like your questions. And the answer is you subordinate your feelings for your behavior. So in other words, when something like that happens, I'm not saying that you should all of a sudden tell yourself, it doesn't matter. I'm really unhappy, but I'm going to not be. No.
Because that really wouldn't work anyway.
No.
I'd be like, I'm telling myself that, and that is not true. It's happening. I'm still mad.
Exactly, exactly. What I'm saying is you tell yourself, I'm unhappy about that, and then you drop it. And the fact is that unfortunately, too often people don't drop it. And what they do instead is they perseverate about it, they talk about it to the next person, they talk about it all day long, and this becomes what they're concerned about. And that is what concerns me now, that people, instead of subordinating their feelings for their actions, letting it go, they constantly are allowing it to become what's important when in fact it's not important.
Is that because you really can't change it? It's already happened or it's existing. What does it do? Does it do you any good, really, to get all upset about it?
Well, I'm going to give you an example of how instead we could, well, first of all, we just had the example of the person who is allowing it to ruin their day. I'm going to give you an example of how not to do that. So you say to yourself, maybe this guy had a problem. Now there you're coming from a viewpoint of infinite resources of everything good.
And compassion for another
compassion.
person. Sure.
And what I mean by infinite resources of everything good, what I'm talking about is if we add anger to the system, the whole system is angry. If we instead contribute love to the system, then that is going to contribute to positive energy for you and them and everybody.
So almost like greet every situation with positive intent.
That's exactly, not almost, yes, do that. Now, I'm going to give you an example of when I did not do that. And I was unhappy with myself, and it just happened. And I did it just so that I could give you all an example.
Of course you did. That's, of course.
Okay, so what happened was I was in a conversation with a very close friend of mine who I love. And it was about politics. And I got very fired up. Now, it doesn't really matter why I got fired up. I mean, I will tell you, the reason I got fired up is because I'm afraid. Fear drives people to look angry when they're afraid. So I was afraid. I'm afraid of the things she's saying about her candidate. We are opposed about that. And so I got really fired up. And what I wasn't thinking about during the entire conversation was, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? Do I want to think about what's really important to me right now, which is our relationship, or am I going to try and defend my position and I'm going to be very dogmatic about it and I'm going to keep going and maybe I'll be right? And that's what I did. I did not seek first to understand. I tried to not only defend my position, but really she was the one that was having to defend, because in any debate, Rose, I'm going to win. That's who I am. So I became very dogmatic, very aggressive. Yes, me, I did that. Very aggressive, very dogmatic, and I wasn't seeking first to understand her. I wanted to make my point.
How did you then recover or even reflect on this and realize that you wish you would have taken a different approach?
I told her I was sorry. I said, I'm sorry I did that. Because what's really important to me, more than who you vote for, is my relationship with you. And had I been thinking about, I love her, rather than I need to change her, I would have had an entirely different approach. That's not to say that I wouldn't have presented my view.
Sure.
However, the first thing we need to do is we need to listen to the other person.
You know, two topics that they always say, politics and religion, stay away from them. It causes so much discord. What would be a way that people can lovingly, families, best friends, people we really appreciate and want in our lives, have conversations like that if they're on opposite sides?
And you know, yes, the thing is that if you're on opposite sides, that's most of the time. We don't always agree.
But maybe is it about understanding or opposite sides? I'm thinking politics, religion, any big topic that has room for diverse opinions. Sometimes it's an understanding, sometimes it's a preconceived notion, sometimes it's other things that impact your particular view on a particular topic on a particular day.
Well, I will tell you what those things are. I mean, I clearly knew at the time, and I know now, it's fear. Mm-hmm. When you are having an argument with someone and you can't listen to their point of view, you're afraid. You're afraid of something they're saying. You're afraid of them. You're afraid of what might happen. You're afraid if you don't, sometimes people act in my, when I'm with them, they behave as though somebody's got to hold up the moral fiber of this universe, and it might as well be me.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if that's your goal, then if I ask you, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? The answer is you're trying to be right, and when in fact, that's really not the goal. If you were to think instead if I were, or in the situations you're bringing up, if we were to instead think, this might be the last time I see this person. This might be the last conversation I have. How do I want them to remember me? How do I want her to feel when she's with me? I want my good friend to feel good when she's with me, loving, happy that we were together. Instead, she probably was feeling this, you know what, rhymes with which. She was probably feeling like, why does she have to try and talk me into her way?
I'm not inviting her over for lunch anymore.
I'm not inviting her over.
Right.
So the thing is that I did a disservice, not just to her, but to me, because I love her. And that's what I should be thinking about in every conversation that we have.
I love that, because how much stuff gets in the way for what's really important. And if you think about the last day, that this might be the last day. Like with her, you thought, oh, how do I want this to end? I had this conversation with my sisters and my mom, and it was funny. My mom says, well, honey, I think I would like to call everybody I love and tell them how much I love them and reminisce with them about things we've done. And I said, so you would spend your whole last day on the telephone? And she said, well, okay, so no, I'm not going to do that. I do need to tell them, and I need to say I'm sorry. And my mom said, and then I'm going to pray a lot, and I'm going to say, well, if I didn't ask for forgiveness, or if I've done anything that I forgot about, let's just do a big blanket forgiveness, because I'm sorry about everything. And then she texted me later on, and she said, well, I thought about what you said about spending my day on the phone, so I'm not going to tell them this is my last day, because then I can get through more people.
She was taking the whole subject very literally.
Right.
But you know what's exciting about what she said? She can do that right now.
Yeah.
She can, so if that's what's important to her, to talk to every single person that matters to her, she can do it now. She doesn't have to wait until it's her last day, and that's my point. My point is, we don't have to wait until the last day comes. We need to behave that way now.
Yeah, and maybe it's not just for other people, right? Maybe we behave that way because we have unfulfilled stuff in our own life.
Exactly.
Or things that we haven't done that we're putting off, or that we really want to do, like saving the good dishes.
Exactly. And so let's talk about that for a moment, because I think that has something to do with really how we feel about ourselves. And of course, everything leads down that road. I believe that. The fact is that saving the good dishes is not what I advocate at all. I say bring them out now. And not just that, but think about some steps behind that. People tell me all the time that they believe they're dating the wrong guy, or they're picking the wrong person. And what I say to them is, let's talk about how you pick yourself every day. How do you feel about yourself? Because if you feel good about yourself, you're going to pick the right person. I'll give you a quick
smile
story.
in the mirror, right?
I'll give you a quick story about that. When I was in high school, I worked after school at a supermarket. And I had a guy who helped. In those days, we had young guys help pack the bags. And so he was the bag person for me. And he was really cute, very, very cute. And he didn't feel good about himself, and I could tell. He made comments to me that let me know that. And his parents did not get along with each other. Those were the two things I knew about him. I knew that his parents didn't get along, that they had a tumultuous relationship, and also he didn't feel good about himself. And he asked me.
And he was very good looking.
He was very cute.
Yeah.
And he asked me to the junior prom. And my first thought was, gee, he's really cute. I would like to kiss him, but I don't want to go out with him. I don't want him for my boyfriend. I don't want to go to the prom with him. I don't think I knew enough about this at the time, but it was intuitive that he was not for me. And now that I look back on that situation, believe me, I didn't know I was going to talk about him today, but his name was Peter.
Okay.
But the fact is that I knew somewhere in my brain that he was not for me because I felt really good about myself. I felt like I'm a pretty good person. I like myself. Why would I want to be with someone even for a night? Well, especially for the prom. Why would I want to be there with somebody who's down on themselves, does not like themselves, feels unhappy about themselves and their family?
So you broke his heart.
I don't know that I did. He was cute. He could have gotten any girl. He probably had a lot of dates to choose from. But the fact is that sometimes what I say to people, what's intuitive matters, and think about, pay attention to that. So instead of trying, and this goes along with how would we act every day if we knew this might be the last day, go about your day respecting yourself. And if you don't, do what you need to do to like yourself better. Because if you spend your time talking about, thinking about, and living the notion that your spouse isn't good enough, your kids aren't good enough, whoever isn't good enough, that means you believe you're not good enough. And that's what we need to change then. So that is something that that's a value that I hold very dear.
You know what I'm thinking about is then, are you saying maybe we wake up in the morning, you look in the mirror, you smile, and then you say, you know, this is going to be a no complaining day.
Yes,
No complaining
I need to do
on
that more
anything.
often.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And along with that, I think this definitely goes along with that, is perfectionism. Unfortunately, we hold back from ourselves and other people if they're not perfect. And I've said this before, but I think it's worth saying again. When somebody knows you are holding back approval or love from them, then they feel like they're in an audition, and nobody does their best in an audition. And so instead, that's a very childish thing to do, hold back approval. Instead, even if you don't think your child, your husband, your neighbor, your friend is giving you the best they got, try and behave with them as though you know they're capable of that, because that is what provides room for somebody to change. That truly is what gives people license to be better for you.
And maybe on the other side, their intuition is picking up on you not feeling great about yourself.
Exactly.
And having fear. And so therefore you've got some things to work out.
And what goes along with that is the failure to recognize that you are responsible for your own life and what happens to you in this life and what you do about it, is the failure to understand that you can do something about it. Because as long as you're blaming my parents, my background, where I grew up, how I grew up, as long as you're thinking about anything having to do with right now, then truly you are not taking responsibility for the fact that you can take steps to change your life. Look at all the people that are in the public eye that we know of who grew up so differently than they are now. How? Why? Because something in them said, I can get an education. I can change my life. And you know, let's face it, it really helps if you have parents who support you, who tell you that you're good, who tell you that you can achieve. I had those kind of parents. My parents instilled in me that I could do anything that I wanted, and that was such a gift. There are people that don't have that in their parents, but they have other people in their lives they need to thank. And that's something else I want to say about this topic. If you woke up in the morning and you said to yourself, whose shoulders am I standing on? Who helped me get to where I am right now? And you called them up and you told them, that's a great way to start your day.
And you've made their day, right?
And you've made their day. And also telling people that you're thankful for them. That is something that we don't do enough. Not even somebody who helped you in your career or your parents who helped you in your life, although you got to say thanks to them too. But somebody who just said something that was meaningful to you that at the time you weren't even expecting, or somebody who truthfully, this happens to me sometimes when I walk down the street and I see a person smiling, it makes me smile.
Yeah.
So that is something that you owe them. You owe them that gratitude.
What about, Susan, and people who say, you know, the parents were not an issue. Really, I'm just paralyzed by fear. I'm afraid of making a mistake. You talked earlier about perfectionism, but I'm afraid. I'm afraid to try that because it's safe right here where I am right now.
And that's such a good question, because I think every one of us have had that kind of fear. I saw Idina Menzel sing the other night. I went to the concert. I love Idina Menzel. It was such a great, wonderful night. And one of the things she said is, guess what? I got stage fright. What? Adina Menzel has stage fright?
Yeah.
She's the most fabulous singer ever. She's got stage fright. So the exciting thing about fear, you can have it. You're entitled to have it. But you don't have to be crippled by it. And the way to not be crippled by it is to say, I'm afraid right now and I'm going to do it anyway. And if I make a mistake, let's say you're whatever makes you fearful. Some people are afraid of getting up in front of an audience and speaking. You know what? You might stutter. You might lose your train of thought. You may not have a perfect night. But truthfully, that will not be the way people judged you.
And failure isn't fatal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Failure isn't fatal. It is human. And the fact is that if people would just stop trying to be perfect and instead being more of who they are, they would find that most of us are so concerned about our own performance that they're not even paying attention to your performance. And you know, that's what it is that if instead you believe that your life is a performance, that's where you also need to think about how much of your time is spent doing shoulds. Because you know what?
Shoulda, coulda, woulda, yeah.
I am all for eliminate the shoulds. I can tell you, I mean, off the top of my head, the first thing that comes to my mind about my shoulds that I gave up, I do not send any holiday cards. Now, the truth is, I love my friends. I've moved to different cities. I don't see all of my friends all of the time. They're not here with me necessarily. Some of my new friends are here with me. I'm lucky for that. But I miss my friends in other places. Why don't I send cards? Because I decided that I am not going to spend, it took weeks of my time writing the holiday cards. And you know what I do now? I call people. And sometimes it takes me all year to get through those phone calls. You know why? Because I don't rush it. I call one person a day. Now, I don't call every day, but I call them to tell them how much they mean to me. They don't
connect on a personal level,
That's
which
right.
is more important than getting it in the mail.
But it's not going to come at the holidays. They may
Right.
not hear from me at the holidays. It doesn't mean I've forgotten them. It doesn't mean I don't want to connect with them. The fact is that there are other ways to accomplish your goals without the shoulds.
Okay.
Without the shoulds.
So now I want to know, if this was your last day,
Yeah. What would I do?
what would you do?
Okay. Why don't you tell me first, what would you do?
I think I'd definitely call my family, let them know. Now I'm going to get emotional. Let them know how much I love them.
Right.
Tell people I'm sorry if I ever hurt your feelings.
Right. Yeah. 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 You
And I think, you know, obviously say prayers and
Yeah.
be grateful. I wouldn't do anything crazy like go out and eat a famous meal or
Yeah,
go
yeah, yeah.
skydiving or
No,
anything
no,
like
no.
that.
Yeah.
My circle would be small.
And what I would do is I would, and by the way, this is what you would do, because where we go when we have no time to think is where we'd really go. So here's where I go. I would, and this is the image in my mind. I've had this image a long time. The image in my mind is my two sons and my husband and the rest of my family. My daughter-in-laws, my grandchildren, and I would tell my two sons first, they were the best sons anyone could ever hope for, ever. And that they made my life, and my husband was the best husband ever. And my grandchildren bring me incredible joy that I never thought was even possible, that kind of joy. That's what I would do. That's what I would do. But it would be the most important thing to me in this whole world is that those people that I just mentioned understand how I feel about them.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I would love if I could to get us all together. But everything,
Yeah.
everyone is so spread out.
Yeah.
It would be hard to see everybody
Yeah.
and actually wrap your arms around
Yeah.
them, you know?
Yeah.
So I think the last day is about sharing love and compassion, letting people know.
Yeah.
But I think beyond that, the message that I'm feeling is let's not wait till that last day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, get in touch with what's important to you.
Yeah.
That means who's important to you. Tell them. What's important to you? What do you want to be doing on a day-to-day basis? And you know, so often, I believe, so often people say to me, I ask them these questions, people say to me, I want to make a difference. And you can make a difference in so many different ways. You don't have to be president of the country. You don't have to be what people perceive as a leader. You can make a difference. You know, I have a nephew who I absolutely adore, who told me that he has a new job and he's working in a bike shop and he knows everything about bikes. And I said, what do you love most about your job? And he said, the philosophy of the bike shop. We are not trying to sell, sell, sell. We want people to have a bike that is good for them, is going to keep them safe. He is making a difference in this world. Mm-hmm. So you can make a difference in the world in everything that you do. And the main part about that is how you do it. It's not necessarily what it is. It's just got to be important to you.
And maybe it's the little things from every single minute of every single day, the interactions that you have. And like you said at the very beginning, you know, it's not letting the things that go wrong really get a bigger place and a much more of a priority than they deserve.
Exactly.
You know, it's not giving them that place that they're the star of the show.
Which brings me to, then this is a perfect conclusion, is be in the present. Be in the present. Do not perseverate about what came before. I don't care if it was 5 minutes before or 5 years before. Be in the present. It will help you in every possible way in every relationship that you have and the relationship you have with yourself.
That's great. Susan, thank you so much. I think that we can all just have a really good day today and not wait for the very end. I'm Rose Martin for Real Life and Susan Harf. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.